Hello, and welcome to the 17th Annual Food Justice Summit. My name is Enrique Orozco, and I am one of the co-organizers of the summit this year. Before we start your session, I want to highlight some of the accessibility options, engagement features, and explain how to access interpretation services. Hola, y bienvenido a la 17ª Cumbre Anual de la Justicia Alimentaria de Chicago. Me llamo Enrique Orozco y soy uno de los coordinadores de la cumbre este año. Antes de empezar, quiero tomar un momento para indicar las opciones de accesibilidad, las herramientas de participación y los servicios de interpretación. Para acceder a los servicios de interpretación, fíjese al lado izquierdo de su pantalla. Al hacer clic al botón que dice Audio Captions, se abrirá una ventana. Haga clic en Select y luego elige el lenguaje de su preferencia, inglés o español. Comenzarás automáticamente a escuchar al intérprete. Para acceder a los servicios de subtítulo, elige el botón que indique CC. Se tiene que elegir una de estas opciones. Para escuchar a los presentadores, elige la opción Floor. Se puede cerrar esta ventana. Finalmente, deberás silenciar el video principal para no escuchar a los presentadores e intérpretes. Estas opciones también se pueden encontrar al lado derecho de su pantalla, bajo la pestaña que dice Interpretación. To access interpretation services, look at the left side of your screen. By clicking on the Audio Captions button, you will open a window. Click on Select and then choose which language you would like to hear, English or Spanish. You will automatically begin to hear the interpreter. To turn on closed captioning, click on the CC button. You will need to select one of these options. To hear the original speakers, select the floor option. You may close this window. Finally, you will need to mute the main video in order to not hear the original speakers and interpreters. These features can also be found on the right side of your screen under the Interpretation tab. The platform also offers a number of visual accessibility tools. To find them, click on the profile image at the bottom of your screen, and then select Accessibility Adjustments. You can also change the language of the window through this pop-up. Under these accessibility adjustments, you can select different options to make the website easier to read. We welcome you to participate in the conversation through the chat window. Clicking again on the Chat tab on the right side will open up this screen. Select the box at the beginning to begin typing into the chat. At the end of the session, we will open for a brief question and answer portion, and you may type your questions here. Afterwards, I invite you to open the polling tab to answer a very short survey that lets our team know how well we did in planning these sessions. I hope you enjoy the 17th Annual Chicago Food Justice Summit. I will now turn it over to your speakers.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Camille Kerr, and I am a co-founder of ChiFresh Kitchen, which is a worker cooperative co-owned by formerly incarcerated folks here in Chicago. And I am also a founder of a consulting firm called Upside Down Consulting, which is a solidarity economy consulting firm. And Martin, you want to introduce yourself before I jump in?
Thank you, Camille. So, yeah, my name is Martín Unzueta y yo soy el director ejecutivo de un centro de trabajadores en la ciudad de Chicago. Nosotros hemos estado enfocados y hemos estado apoyándonos mutuamente con diferentes organizaciones, incluyendo la organización de Camille, para formar lo que es la cooperativa o la alianza de cooperativas en la ciudad de Chicago. Gracias por tenerme aquí.
Great. So this session is about how worker cooperatives can advance economic and racial justice in the food system. And I wanted to kick off with a little bit of an introduction to the solidarity economy and cooperative concepts in case folks aren't familiar with them. So here I go. I'm going to open up my screen here. So I want to give a quick introduction to what is the solidarity economy. And I'm using a mural board. This is my first time trying this, so bear with me. But the basics of the solidarity economy is that it's a system where all things that a community needs are controlled and governed by everyday people who are part of that community, right? So instead of the way the systems we have now, where often outside people own things or a concentrated couple of people own most of the property, most of the businesses, and the rest of us live in those buildings and work for those businesses, it's a place where all of the things that we need are controlled and governed by us, those who are using the services. And some of the values behind the solidarity economy are democracy. So organizations that are democratically governed, and that means one person, one vote by the people who are using them, the stakeholders of those organizations. Sovereignty, that we all have, which I think is spelled wrong there, but that we have control over our own spaces and land. Economic and racial justice, solidarity, obviously, pluralism. And part of what I mean by pluralism is that we don't think there's one solution out there. There are multiple solutions that are available that we should be trying and testing and innovating on. Cooperation, working closely together towards common goals. Mutualism, so not charity, but solidarity, all of us working without power dynamics in terms of I'm giving you this, but we're all meeting each other's needs and our common needs. And another one is ecological sustainability. So really being climate justice is a big part of the solidarity economy movement. And just a little brief look at the different ways that cooperatives and other solidarity economies structures show up. So it can be alternative production. Here, I'll put right here. That's the one, that's worker cooperative. So alternative ways to have businesses and companies that produce things that we need. Alternative consumption, which is more like buying groups and consumer cooperatives, different ways for us to come together to use the things that we need to use. Excuse me. Alternative finance, so credit unions, loan circles, other ways that we can resource the work that we need to do. Alternative exchange, like time banking, for instance, and alternative community governance. And what that's talking about is really integrating a real version of democracy into our system. So participatory budgeting and more direct democratic structures when it comes to place-based governance. So those are some of the sectors that we look at when we're talking about solidarity economy. Most of what we'll be talking about today is alternative production. So us coming together to build businesses that are co-governed by the stakeholder, by the workers themselves. And a little bit more introduction into just some of the organizations in Chicago and serving Chicago that that work in the solidarity economy. So the Illinois Worker Cooperative Alliance, and I'm going to hand it over to Martin in just a second here to describe what IWCA is doing. Urban Growers Collective is building a worker cooperative. Centro de Trabajadores Unidos has been building worker cooperatives for, I think, 6-7 years now. Martin's group, Chicago Community and Workers' Rights, the Community Enterprise and Solidarity Economy Clinic at UIC, that's Renee Hatcher, Cooperation for Liberation, a reading group and study and cooperative development group rooted in Black liberation principles. Co-op Ed Center, Grow Greater Inglewood's thinking of building a worker cooperative as well. There's a new collaboration in town, Partners for Abolition, Transformation, Healing, and Solidarity, also rooted in the Black liberation tradition, looking at the intersection of resistance and building and healing. So what systems do we need to tear down? What systems do we need to build up? And how do we need to heal for us all to be free? The Lawndale Christian Development Center, I'm sorry, LCDC, I forget the acronym, but they're doing a cooperative development project up in Lawndale there. And this is my firm, Upside Down Consulting. So just so you have a little bit of background around what the solidarity economy is, what our values are, what sectors we live in, and who's doing this work here in Chicago. And this isn't exhaustive, but it's a starting list. And I'll kick it to you, Martin, to discuss what IWCA is and what we're building there.
Gracias, Camille. Gracias, Camille. Bien, nosotros desde 1918 empezamos a hacer algunas reuniones con diferentes grupos, entre ellos Centro de Trabajadores Unidos y la organización se me fue el nombre, compañero, y bueno, hemos estado impulsando la cuestión de las cooperativas, hicimos una propuesta, hablamos con diferentes legisladores, ahí empezamos a juntarnos con más grupos, llegó el grupo de Camille también, para ir a Springfield, y estando en Springfield, ¿verdad? Estuvimos hablando con diferentes legisladores hasta que pudimos hacer que la propuesta de la creación de cooperativas se instaurara en Illinois. Es importante remarcar que en Illinois no había una ley para cooperativas, a pesar de que hacía años ya existían cooperativas aquí, como la cooperativa de Salcedo Press, que es una cooperativa que existía desde los años 80, 80 más o menos. También tenemos la cooperativa Nueva Era, la cooperativa de ventanas, ¿verdad? Que ya tiene también algunos años funcionando. Sin embargo, no había en Illinois una ley que estableciera la cuestión de las cooperativas. Afortunadamente pudimos lograr esta colaboración entre varias organizaciones aquí en Illinois, y la ley pasó, ¿verdad? Fue firmada en 2018 por el gobernador del estado. Todavía nos falta trabajar mucho sobre la misma ley, porque a pesar de que ya existe la figura fiscal, ¿verdad? La figura económica de la cooperativa en el estado de Illinois, todavía los bancos todavía no tienen mucha idea de cómo trabajar con las cooperativas, ¿verdad? Creo que todavía faltan hacer algunos enlaces con la sociedad, con la misma sociedad, para poder impulsar las cooperativas. Y en eso creo que estamos trabajando bien, ¿verdad? Ya tenemos varios contactos, incluyendo a nivel nacional. Estamos trabajando con Seed Commons, que es una non-for-profit de cooperativas, y pronto vamos a tener aquí en Illinois un loan officer, un oficial de préstamos que va a trabajar solamente para la cuestión de cooperativas, lo cual es bien importante. Es un logro muy grande lo que nosotros tenemos aquí en la cooperativa. Así como decía Camille, ¿verdad? No, creo que es importante remarcar, cooperativas es un negocio, pero es un negocio social, es un negocio dentro de la comunidad. no es como el patrón que viene de otro lado, de otro estado o de otra comunidad lejana a la comunidad nuestra, ¿verdad? Y toma el capital, la ganancia y se la lleva para su banco o para su casa, ¿verdad? Aquí la cooperativa derrama entre todos los socios las ganancias, y eso viene en beneficio a la comunidad, porque la comunidad está aquí, los socios están aquí en nuestra comunidad, sea una comunidad latina, sea una comunidad blanca, sea una comunidad afroamericana, ¿verdad? Aquí van a quedar las ganancias y el barrio se va a levantar, el barrio va a tener mejores direcciones, ¿verdad? Una de las cosas importantísimas de las cooperativas es que las decisiones son democráticas, las decisiones son por mayoría. No tenemos que tener mayoría para poder impulsar las cuestiones, un miembro, un voto, creo que es súper importante. Bueno, pues estamos trabajando en lo de las cooperativas. Gracias. Camil.
Thank you so much, Martin. I'm going to share my screen again here. I did want to also mention that beyond, these are primarily nonprofit organizations. My consulting firm is a small business, but beyond what's happening in the private sector, the city of Chicago has committed an investment in community wealth building, which they define primarily as cooperatives, housing cooperatives, worker cooperatives, and land trusts, other solidarity economy structures that have joint governance. So not only is there a lot of work happening between those of us at the community level, but also the city is investing in community wealth building, in cooperative development as well. So that's an exciting recent development that happened. So I wanted to dive in a little bit more into land and food models that are in the solidarity economy, given that this is a food summit. So I want to read this. These are, and I forgot to mention that the definitions on about what a solidarity economy is. I'm pulling all of this from the New Economy Coalition, which if you haven't interacted with them, have beautiful information and community around the solidarity economy. So I'm just going to actually read this. This capitalist economy was built on stolen land with stolen lives and labor. Without reparations for America's original sin, there can be no justice. As we work to build community control and restore our relationship to land and agriculture, it's critical we follow the leadership of Indigenous and Black communities to advance land return and food sovereignty. And so some of the models that we're talking about when we're looking at the solidarity economy in the food and land space is community land trusts. And these are all happening here in Chicago. Community governed and owned gardens, food co-ops, farm co-ops. It's not on here, but worker co-ops that produce meals, mutual aid that provides food to communities, community fridges, which is something that's really took hold during the pandemic, regenerative agriculture, and food sovereignty as concepts and ideas that really fit within this solidarity economy model. So I wanted to just take a look at some of the examples that we have here in Chicago that are cooperatives or emerging cooperatives in the food space. So I'll start with a little bit about ChiFresh Kitchen. We started ChiFresh Kitchen. It launched in early spring of 2020. So just as the pandemic closures were first starting, and we had been planning ChiFresh for about a year and a half before that to build a worker cooperative that was co-owned by formerly incarcerated and primarily Black women who face incredible barriers to reentry and to economic security post-release. And so our vision was, can we make a can we make a workplace that provides that economic security in an autonomous, liberating work environment for folks who otherwise face barriers to dignified employment. And ChiFresh kicked off. We decided to be in the food industry. We started off not having any idea what industry we were going to start in, and then we narrowed it down based on our goals, which were that we could grow and sustain a lot of jobs, that we could provide a valuable service to our community, that it was relatively safe and not backbreaking work. And so we came up with this model of being a food service contractor. And we based our business model off of another social enterprise based in Boston called CityFresh Foods. And CityFresh luckily was willing to support us to get started here and share a lot of their learnings and intellectual property to help us kick off. And so ChiFresh has done more than 120,000 meals at this point. When we got started, we were mostly doing meals that were related to food insecurity as a result of the pandemic. And we were super blessed to have partners like Urban Growers Collective, Grow Greater Inglewood, the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, who were interested in lifting up our model while meeting food needs in our communities that were related to the pandemic. So we put out, we went from doing 50 meals a day that, and paying for them from donations and crowdfunding to having 300 to 500 meals per day that we were partnering with various community organizations with to get food out to people who are suffering the most during the pandemic. So that's how we got started, really doing that emergency food work. And our worker owners went from, being able to each have 16 hours on this job to being full-time on this job at $18 an hour to being full-time and having a meaningful living wage. So people are now making $20 to $30 an hour at ChiFresh, and we're able to not only continue to work with some of these community partners who are still with Omicron and other factors addressing food insecurity that's pandemic related, but we're also working with schools and daycares and other organizations in our community that need daily meals. And instead of getting those meals from outside organizations that are not rooted in Chicago, they're working with our members to get food that is made with love, that integrates produce from local urban farms, that is delicious and familiar for the people who are eating it. So that's a little bit about ChiFresh, and I'll pass it back to Martin to talk about Cocina Compartida de Trabajadores Cooperativistas, and then I can go through a couple more of these examples here.
Gracias, Camille. Está muy interesante todo lo que estamos platicando. En este momento el turno para mí es para hablar acerca de la cocina compartida de trabajadores cooperativistas. Esta cocina fue creada para que los vendedores ambulantes pudieran crear sus alimentos en esa cocina y venderlos en la calle. Esta cocina es parte del esfuerzo de la Asociación de Vendedores Ambulantes, que en 2015 promovió y pasó una ordenanza nueva en la ciudad de Chicago. Hasta 2015 no existía una ley que pudiera amparar a los vendedores ambulantes. A pesar de que Vendedores Ambulantes tiene muchos años en la ciudad de Chicago, no había una ley que los protegiera y entonces eran víctimas de abuso por parte de la policía y por parte de otras autoridades. Podemos decir, por ejemplo, cuando yo empecé a ayudar a vendedores ambulantes, Las multas eran de $1,500 para los vendedores, ¿verdad? Y muchas veces era el arresto del vendedor ambulante y dejarlo en la cárcel por varias horas hasta la madrugada del siguiente día, a las 2, 3 de la mañana, lo liberaban y le ponían multa y le ponían también una cita en la corte. Esa era la situación hace algunos años. Por eso es que promovimos la nueva ordenanza y en 2015 afortunadamente pasó en la ciudad de Chicago. Esta ordenanza lo que permite es al vendedor ambulante, si cocina sus alimentos en una cocina con licencia, entonces puede venderlos en la calle. De esta forma es que nosotros, los socios de la Cocina Compartida de Trabajadores Cooperativistas, son 22 miembros de la cooperativa, ¿verdad? Y pueden crear sus alimentos allí en la cocina y venderlos en la calle sin ninguna restricción. No habiendo problemas para la cuestión de la venta de la comida en cuestión de higiene, de producir higiénicamente los alimentos. La Cocina Compartida de Trabajadores Cooperativistas en el año pasado, el 2021, el 10 de marzo, hasta el 10 de marzo del 2021, ellos rentaban un espacio en North London, en el norte de arriba de la villita, ¿verdad? En North London es un espacio que hay ahí. Hasta el 10 de marzo del 2021 se estuvo rentando durante 6 años y ahí tuvieron la oportunidad de comprarlo, de comprar el espacio, y ahora el edificio les pertenece a la cooperativa. Entonces ahora ese es un paso más adelante, ¿verdad? Ya no tienen que rentar o están pagando lo que es el mortgage, lo que es el pago al banco, pero ahora ya son partes dueños de esto. También estamos comprando en México una máquina para hacer tamales. Entonces, es una máquina de alta producción de hacer tamales y es posible, esta máquina hace cerca de 8,000 tamales en un día. Vamos a decir que puede hacer 1,000 tamales por hora. Entonces, eso va a aumentar la posibilidad de producción de tamales higiénicamente, ¿verdad? Pero los socios van a poder adquirir esos tamales a precios bajos para poderlos vender en la calle. Y eso les va a dar una ganancia extra. Actualmente, las personas que venden tamales en la calle, ¿verdad? Tienen que hacerlos en la tarde, noche, digamos, de las 6 de la tarde a las 10 de la noche, y empezarlos a cocer a las 2 o 3 de la mañana, los tamales, para irlos a vender a las 4 o las 5 de la mañana a la calle. Ese es más o menos la vida de los vendedores de tamales, ¿no? Afortunadamente, si tenemos esta máquina de hacer tamales, pues lo único que van a tener que hacer es hacer el pedido, se les entregan los tamales ya cocidos y entonces, ¿verdad? Van a poder tener mayor descanso en sus vidas. Esa es la proyección. Estamos también a punto de comprar uno de los espacios adjuntos a la cocina y estamos pensando hacer un invernadero. Un invernadero donde vendedores ambulantes puedan tener posibilidades del chile, el jitomate y otras especies que ellos usan para producir la salsa para hacer los tamales. Entonces, este es todo un proyecto que va a emplear muchísima gente en la construcción y también en el desarrollo de la cooperativa. Y esa es nuestra aportación a esto.
And those tamales are delicious, by the way. So good. We've gotten the opportunity to eat them multiple times over at ChiFresh, and they are delightful. So I recommend finding those street vendors and getting some tamales.
Yeah.
Okay, I also wanted to let you know about some other projects that are other cooperative businesses that are in existence or taking shape in Chicago. So this is a picture from Katatumbo Farms, and it's a small worker cooperative farm that's currently on a plot at the Urban Growers Collective farm on the south side down at 89th Street farm. And they, during the pandemic, they grew a lot of produce, and much of that, I believe, they were able to provide to folks who are facing food insecurity as well. So we all really came together. That's what cooperatives are for, is meeting community needs and meeting them in solidarity. And so many of these cooperatives really took that time to meet the needs in our own communities, and Catatumbo was no exception. And there's an emerging worker cooperative. I'll zoom in on this like forming now, partner with us. So the Southside Food Cooperative is a Black-led food co-op that's getting off the ground and interested in getting started on the south side of Chicago, perhaps in Greater Grand Crossing or Auburn Gresham. Those are the areas that they're looking for, but they're hoping to bring fresh produce to their own community through a hybrid worker and community consumer cooperative that they start up there on the south side. So those are some. There are other food related worker cooperative businesses starting as well, but those are some of the examples that we're seeing. One of the initiatives that we brought together during the pandemic was Martin's group. So the Cocina Compartida de Trabajadores, Cooperativistas, ChiFresh Kitchen, and Cooperativistas Visionarias. What is it?
Visionarias. Las Visionarias.
So our groups, these are 3 worker cooperatives, all food production cooperatives based on the south and west sides of Chicago, came together to hopefully provide ongoing meals, not just pandemic related meals, but ongoing meals to folks facing food insecurity. Because as we know, the pandemic definitely exacerbated food insecurity issues, but that's not where they started. These issues have been in our communities for a very long time. So on an ongoing basis, our 3 cooperatives want to come together and make sure that we are part of the work to build food sovereignty and food security in our community. So we called that Shy Meals, and the 3 of our groups are continuing to provide community meals to families directly, delivered to their home, to those experiencing homelessness at this time, and to community groups who have a finger on the pulse of their communities and have seen food insecurity be an issue. So that's another initiative that we're coming together to bring forth. And I want to shout out that Urban Growers Collective is also doing a growers apprenticeship program where we're going to build cooperative skills by practicing cooperation amongst that cohort to help people who are interested in eventually building their own cooperative business learn the skills in a safe, kind of risk-free learning environment. So we're really excited about all of the new initiatives that are popping up in the solidarity economy work here in Chicago. And we did want to leave some room as well for any questions that you might have. So we'll pause here and take questions from the audience. Or Martin, if there's anything else you want to jump in with, feel free as well.
Gracias, Camille. Bueno, sí, como dice Camille, hay varias iniciativas que estamos teniendo ahora, ¿verdad? pueden tratar de consultarnos. El Illinois Workers Cooperative Alliance o la Alianza de Cooperativas de Chicago, de Illinois, pues estamos interesados en que si hay gente que tiene proyectos para hacer una cooperativa y no tiene mucha idea, pues miren, aquí la experiencia de Camil, la experiencia de nosotros como formadores de cooperativas es bien importante, ¿no? Creo que sobre todo las personas latinas, ¿verdad? Porque por eso estamos hablando en español aquí en esta presentación, tendrían mejor posibilidades, por ejemplo, podrían hacer cooperativas de limpieza, no nada más de producción de comida, cooperativas de limpieza, cooperativas, no sé, de trabajadores de mantenimiento, sobre todo cuando hemos trabajado nosotros en el área de derechos laborales, ¿verdad? Encontramos que muchas personas son expulsadas de los trabajos o son despedidas de los trabajos por la cuestión de una falta de seguro, de un seguro social, pero podrían hacer un negocio, ¿verdad? Hacer un negocio, nada más necesitan un IT number, un IT number, y con ese se puede iniciar un negocio aquí en Illinois. Entonces, pues muchas gracias por la presentación, muchas gracias, Camil. Y pues si hay preguntas, ya estamos dispuestos a contestarlas.
There was a question about the slide deck, and now that the Miro board link is actually in the chat there, you can go explore it yourself as well. You can go in there and look around at just what the solidarity economy is, and who these organizations are that are building it, the values and everything. So feel free to go in and explore. Well, I'll just keep talking about ChiFresh until y'all have a question. So we got a new building, which we're really exciting about. We purchased the building in December of 2021, and I did not know what construction was like. So I did not know that we would still not be in that building yet, but I have learned. And so we will be moving into the new space. It's a 6,250 square foot building. I think that's right. 6,125 square foot building. And we'll be moving in late May or early June. We have the production capacity of more than 5,000 meals per day out of that space. And it's good that we're moving there now because we just got our first larger contract for 600 kids per day. We'll be bringing them breakfast, lunch, and a snack every day, alongside of a couple of our other school clients that are smaller. This daycare, it's a network of daycare, is our first like multi-year larger contract. So we're really excited to go from a baby business getting started in the midst of the pandemic to breaking into the market and being able to serve the needs of hundreds of kids in our own communities now. The locations are on the west side and on the south side, so that's really exciting for us. So I thought I'd share that ChiFresh update, and we'd love any additional questions that y'all have. Thanks for all the love in the chat. Martin, you're getting a bunch too. Oh, and I see that Southside Food Co-op is represented in the audience and saying that the first 300 members get perks, and we're at less than 200. So go over to the Southside Food Co-op and become a member today. All right, we do have a question here. Have you seen co-ops integrate land rematriation into their model? I'm particularly wondering how to navigate this when starting a housing co-op on land. One thing that we definitely have seen, and Martin, you can chime in too, in the housing and land space, is that we use multiple models on top of each other, right? So we have perhaps an underlying land trust, and the land trust ensures that the property is only used with democracy on top of it for community purposes and under community control. So there's a lock on the land is what the land trust does. And part of that can be the rematriation process of this land can only be used in a way that's in line with those values. And then on top of it, we have a cooperative governance structure, and the cooperative governance structure ensures that the people who are currently using the land, most affected by the use of the land, are the ones who make the decisions about the land, who have a joint agreement that they build together about how to use the land. So that's one model that we've definitely seen. Martin and I are definitely we're worker co-op people. So the diving into the land piece is a little, but we are learning, because one of the next phases for ChiFresh anyway is that we want to build a housing cooperative for the members, for formerly incarcerated individuals. So I will be personally, and our team will be diving a lot more into these land and housing issues in the months coming. So we'll share our learnings with you.
Ya, y tal vez el próximo año lo podamos hacer en persona, ya que no tengamos todo el tiempo de tener que hacer las cosas a través de las pantallas de las computadoras, y podamos compartir más cosas, ¿verdad? Yo creo que es muy interesante esta intención de los compañeros de que cada una de las personas que son miembros de la cooperativa pueda tener su espacio, ¿verdad? Pueda tener su casa, pueda tener el espacio para su familia, y creo que es una cosa muy, muy, muy importante para los cooperativistas. Entonces, pues felicidades. La verdad, Camil, siempre me sorprendes, tienen muchas ideas.
Hopefully there's going to be a lot of new initiatives to help or to bring the solidarity economy and cooperatives to new folks. So I think in the coming months, we're going to see a lot more educational programming available, and hopefully at Seed Commons and IWCA we have some of that, as well as Paths, which I mentioned, and the co-op for Co-op Ed Center as well, and Co-op for Lib. So all of us are really invested in getting the word out. So we're excited about the work that's happening now to do that.
Sí, y quería referirme a la pregunta sobre la comunidad latina. Nosotros recientemente, el Chicago Community, mi organización, hizo un taller sobre cooperativas y cómo iniciar una cooperativa. Si hay un grupo de personas interesado, podemos hacer una presentación particular hacia ese grupo de personas de cómo iniciar la cooperativa, los principios básicos, los registros, etcétera, ¿verdad? Nosotros estamos en la Villita, estamos en el centro de la Villita, Y ahí está nuestra comunidad y si tienen preguntas, acérquense con nosotros, o sea, indudablemente para ayudarlos siempre y apoyarlos.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today and for listening. It's been our pleasure to share solidarity economy concepts and about the work that we're doing. And please reach out if you have any questions or follow-ups or want to learn more about the cooperative work that we're engaged in. So, appreciation.
Gracias. Gracias a todos.